You may start whenever you are ready.
Hello, my name is Owen P. I'm an AP research student at Southwestern Randolph High School, and my project was on Ashboro adolescents' opinions on alternative medicine. So what is alternative medicine? Alternative medicine is defined by the World Health Organization as the sum of total knowledge, skills, and practices based on the theories, beliefs, and experiences indigenous to different cultures, whether explicit or not, used in the maintenance of health as well as in the prevention, diagnosis, or treatment of physical and mental illness. And the most common examples that I kind of included in my project are most known are chiropractic care, acupuncture, which just needles specific muscle groups to get more blood flow to certain areas of the body, herbal supplements, which are derived from plants for health benefits, and yoga and meditation, which a lot of people actually don't know is considered medicine. So initially, I kind of started my paper and my research in a different direction. I wanted to start with researching traditional Chinese medicine, just because I came across this Chinese body clock on TikTok, and it kind of just shows how like different times of the day kind of correspond with different organs. So like a lot of people, if they have migraines at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, there's usually a gallbladder issue. That's just kind of a thing that was widely accepted. And so I saw this earlier in the summer, and then later on I did have to go to the doctor for something in a different organ, and it kind of corresponded to issues I was having in the day. So I was like, this is pretty cool that something from thousands of years ago can relate to today, and it's still true. However, there were kind of some limitations with my project, as you know, this is Eastern medicine, and it's in Chinese. So a lot of the good research that was credible was in Chinese, and I don't know Chinese. And this picture is from healthline.com. So I kind of switched my focus. I wanted to stay on this topic of alternative medicine just because it was December, and I wanted to salvage as much as I could, and I just kind of reevaluated, and I thought, how could I research alternative medicine and still find a gap in this research? So I switched my directions a little bit, and I came across all the existing literature that I found, and I used three main studies. The first study was from the National Center of Complementary and Alternative Medicine, and it studied complementary and alternative medicine among Gen Z, comparing it to older generations. It focused on the usage and popularity of alternative medicine, and this was done on a national scale. It originated in California, but as the project went along, as the research went along, they got more funding and were able to conduct it all across the country. And the results of this found that among Gen Z, 24% reported usage of complementary and alternative medicine, as well as just being open and accepting and trying to use alternative medicine. In contrast, only 2 generations older, Gen X, reported that only 12% usage and popularity among them. So this study mostly found an inverse relationship between the two variables. So as age goes up, as the age of the respondent or interviewed went up, their usage and openness to trying alternative medicine went down. My second study was from the Journal of Medicine and Internet Research, and this compared Generation Z to the older generations. And this was mainly studying how people get their medical information. And so it studied their online searches and search history and just web browsers and all this stuff. And this found that nationally in the United States, the #1 source of medical information comes from the internet for all the generations. However, Gen Z had the highest rate of using this as the primary source, with 86% of people saying that this is where they get all their information from. Whereas the older generations, it was just decreasing steadily, like the inverse relationship found in the other study. And the third and final study that I used was from the Oliver Wyman Forum, which found that 40% of Gen Z experimented or have tried complementary and alternative medicine before, and the most common type that people reported using was just yoga and meditation, just because a lot of people didn't know that this was even considered medicine in some places. And Gen X, 2 generations older, had only reported 18% usage with the same study. And this image is from Oliver Wyman Forum. So I had to find the research gap. So there was nothing done smaller than a national scale. All these studies were done on a large mass scale all across the country. And specifically, there was nothing done even in North Carolina that studied this. But I had to have a concentrated focus, so I wanted to do my own town of Ashboro, North Carolina. And I originally wanted to only do students at Southwestern Randolph High School, but I didn't think I would get enough results and have enough participants. And I knew that I wanted to study students just because the second study actually studied more of the view of students in Gen Z rather than just people in Gen Z, I guess. And obviously the criteria, they had to be Gen Z, which the age ranges for that is 13 to 28, but I wanted to narrow it down to ages 15 to 25 just because I feel like asking 13-year-olds about medicine would have just given me maybe thrown off my results a little bit. And also this had to study alternative medicine from a symptom management rather than as primary care, because it would have been really hard to find people who only use alternative medicine, because everybody should, it would have just been hard to find in this area, I felt like. So through these barriers and project goals, I came up with this research question: are high school students from Asheboro, North Carolina more likely to choose alternative medical treatments, methods, and procedures over traditional Western medicine, and do environmental factors contribute to their preference? So for the methodology, kind of how I designed this research project, it had to be arranged in a way that had a quantitative focus. So I really wanted a lot of interviews, just because, I mean, with statistics, the more interviews you have, the more accurate your results are going to be. So I wanted at least 20 interviews. I only got 19. And I also wanted to focus on the qualitative variables that kind of affect it, because in my research question, the last part said, do environmental factors contribute to their preference? So these were just things such as religion, culture, race, gender, like those type of things. I wasn't exactly sure at first which qualitative variables I wanted to focus on, but I did end up picking more religion and culture, because I thought that would kind of be easier to get than like gender and whatnot, because I didn't know how many participants I would get of each thing with having only 20 interviews. So this will be done through surveys followed up by an interview. I gave each participant a questionnaire first, just because I felt like if I would have just done an interview with a person, there probably would have been some bias in it, because they might have just been telling me what they wanted me to hear. They knew that I was researching alternative medicine, so they would be more likely to maybe say something, just, I don't know, just being people, I guess. And so I wanted to do that to reduce any biases there. And also for the participants, they had to fit the 4 criteria. They had to be located in Asheboro, North Carolina. Their age, they had to be Gen Z, ages 15 to 25. And I did want them to be a student, just so that data kind of more aligned with the data of the national averages that I found. And I did want to give priority to the people at Southwest, just because these are the people I'm going to be with all the time. So that's just where I could find the most participants at. Prior to the interview, the questionnaire and survey that was kind of given to them, here's an example of sample question 1 that says, have you or a family member ever used or practiced alternative medicine? And at the bottom of the whole survey, there was a list of the 20 most common types of alternative medicine. Just kind of assuming that someone may know nothing about the topic. And so they could answer yes, no, maybe, rather not say, or other. All questions were kind of optional, just because, medicine, and not everyone may be comfortable sharing their medical history or whatnot. So this did kind of limit some of my results, because I only got 12 responses on the most answered question out of 19. So it did kind of throw off my data in some ways. And the hypotheses that I would be testing, the first one is that I predicted 75% of participants would say that they have used alternative medicine prior to the questionnaire. The second that I would be testing was that I thought that 40% of participants would say that their religion or culture influences their healthcare decisions. I also thought that 15% would state that they use alternative medicine as the first course of action when they're sick. My fourth hypothesis was that 25% of participants would say that they trust alternative medicine. The fifth hypothesis that I would be testing was that I thought that the most used form of alternative medicine that people have used would be chiropractic care. My sixth hypothesis was that 75% of participants would say that their family and friends have the biggest impact out of all the people on their healthcare decisions. And the seventh was that 60% would state that social media majorly or partially influences their healthcare decisions. And the last one was that 40% would state that they prefer alternative medicine over traditional medicine. So through the results of my research, I found that in this categorical data, the culture and religion, 55.6% of people would say yes, their culture or religion does influence how they make healthcare decisions. Only 22.2% said no and somewhat. And this is greater than this 55.6% is greater than the 40% I predicted. And I kind of think this was just because in Asheboro, we're in North Carolina, we're in the South, we're in like the Bible Belt, so I think it's safe to imply that when you're in areas like that where there's more greater religion, I feel like that's why this number is so much higher than the 40% nationally. For social media, only 30% of people said that social media moderately impacts their decisions. 60% said slightly and 10% said not at all. This 30% is a lot less than the 60% I thought that would report that yes, social media does impact their healthcare decisions. And I think this is just kind of like people, a lot of people are embarrassed to say what their screen time is or how much they're online, so I think this is why this number is a lot less. And through the interviews, I asked people kind of what are some encouraging factors, what would make you more likely to try alternative medicine. And just some responses I got was that if there was greater education, if it was taught about in schools and more accepted in schools. People also said if they could see or learn individually about the benefits of alternative medicine would make them more likely to try it. If it was better promoted to the public, and some said that the ingredients in pharmaceutical drugs or uses make them want to turn to alternative medicine because there's a lot of hysteria around some stuff. And if there was greater scientific evidence and if it was more widely accepted in the United States. And I also found that 55.6% of people said yes, they would be likely to try alternative medicine, and 22.2% said no or somewhat. And for familiarity, 30% of people said that they were moderately familiar with alternative medicine prior to the interview. 60% said slightly and 10% said not at all. So, in conclusion, I think it's plausible to imply that social media plays a major role in influencing people, especially the younger generations. There's a lot of trends towards alternative medicine online that are increasingly gaining popularity, which I think is a primary reason why Gen Z is so much more open than the younger generations or older generations, just because there's so much more online. I also think that it's plausible to imply that family and friends are still the main influences on adolescent healthcare decisions, just because for 17 years of your life, your parents make most of your health decisions, so you're kind of stuck there in either way. And also just these are the people you live with that kind of influence the world around you. I also think it's safe to conclude that Gen Z is a lot more open to try alternative medicine than previous generations. And I came up with the overall conclusion that there's an inverse relationship between age and openness to trying alternative medicine. So, as the age of the participant goes up, they're going to be less likely to try it. So, whereas you have here, you're going to have Gen Z on this side, they're going to be really open. Whereas what you have here, like the baby boomers, they're going to be a lot less open to trying this. And also, kind of going back to my research question where I asked, are high school students from Asheboro, North Carolina, likely to choose alternative medical treatments, methods, and procedures over traditional Western medicine, and do environmental factors contribute to the preference? I came up with the conclusion that yes, Asheboro Gen Z does follow the national trends. So I think this trend is greater than just the United States. I think it's just true for Gen Z as a whole. For future directions, I think that you can kind of take the research that I have and kind of take this project and focus more on the categorical data and the categories I didn't really study. So you could go among gender, among race, and I think you could do more surveys and get a lot more statistics, but I was limited by the North Carolina Senate Bill 49 Parent Bill of Rights that kind of prevented me from doing just mass surveys and sending them out to people. And I think you could also do this study and kind of follow the trends over time and see if this stays true to the conclusion that I have now. Thank you.
All right. So Mr. Welch is going to ask you your first question.
How did the choices you made when designing or implementing your research method impact your research process?
Yeah. So originally when I started with my other project, I wanted to do a meta-analysis, and which is where you just take a lot of existing studies and come up with one conclusion. But I didn't really think that I could score well with that, and also I didn't really feel like I was going to come up to and find like a new conclusion and a new understanding. So that's where I kind of shifted gears and developed took what was out there and wanted to take these national trends and see if it was true to our area in my town too. So that kind of made me switch my methods up from a meta-analysis to interviews and surveys, which I feel like gave me a better new understanding than the meta-analysis would.
What are the real-world implications or consequences related to your findings?
I think that it's safe. I think it's easy to imply that that social media, I mean, Gen Z is a lot more online, so I think it's a big implication is that a lot of these trends are online, and as people see these trends online, these younger generations that are more online are also more open to it. So I think that social media does play a big factor in how open they are, just because as I showed you with this inverse relationship with as the age went across the x-axis, among the y-axis, the openness went down. I think it's also a big factor is just that social media does that. So I think that affects a lot of people's openness and comfortability with it, just because the more online you are, the more exposed to information you are, so you're just going to be more likely to be open, I feel like.
How did you handle the uncertainty of the research process?
I did not handle it very well. I feel like I did not plan as well as I could have, especially when it was December and I was kind of shifting. I had to restart half my paper. I feel like I was kind of struggling to find people to interview first, just because I did kind of have a criteria and like a selection process. But ultimately, if I could do it over again, I would probably have, I would have started with a different method from the start, so I could have gotten more people, more participants, and because I didn't really like the uncertainty of thinking that, this data might be off because I have so few people. Whereas I think my results could have been a little different if I had maybe 100 people rather than 20 people.
All right, good job.